Hello everyone, my name is Pally, and I'm an OG 2016 DBD nerd who mains Trapper and Bill, but I also dabble in a lot of Singularity, a lot of Springtrap, and also lately a lot of Xenomorph, which is new to me because I never really enjoyed Xenomorph before, but here I am. And this is all thanks to the legendary Mr. Headache, the Xenomorph guy himself, for taking me to Xenomorph University a while back. Anyway, today I want to discuss a topic that's been widely talked about recently, which is whether I believe, objectively, that playing killer in Dead by Daylight has become more difficult, especially after the release of the Five Nights at Freddy's chapter. We'll go over the community's perspective, the potential problems, the potential outcomes, and then I'll also share my own take on the matter because my viewpoint might be a little bit different than you might expect as a Trapper main. So let's go ahead and dive into it. A lot of fine folks in the DBD community are feeling like playing killer has become significantly more difficult lately. Many players are noticing that generator efficiency is through the roof, survivors are healing at lightning speed, and overall it just feels like a real grind for killers right now. The general consensus among these players is that it's become more challenging, more annoying, and it's just a total hassle for killers to attempt to enjoy the game in the last month or so. Picture this, you jump into a killer game and you'll probably have a pretty quick first chase lasting about 20 seconds or so. By the time you hook that survivor and start heading towards the generators to pressure people off them, 2 of the generators are already done. It doesn't feel great, and this just adds to the ongoing problem of killer anxiety, which is a very real issue we'll discuss in a future video. It's just frustrating, and that's how killer players are feeling at the moment. Plus, it makes the game less enjoyable for survivors since they're just getting relentlessly tunneled by blights and ghouls every match. And you might say something like, well, maybe killers just aren't playing well. But I find that argument strange. How can so many people be affected at the same time if it's just a sudden lapse in skill? That doesn't add up. Players with various amounts of time in the game are facing the same problem. Just the other night, Momo7th, one of the top players in the world in Dead by Daylight, had a minor crash out because he was on a Springtrap streak and encountered a situation where he felt powerless. I'm not going to criticize him for crashing out, it happens to everyone with DBD, and I have another video coming out soon talking about it, but for someone like Momo to feel powerless, that speaks volumes. So what's causing this? What's causing killer games to feel overly and unnecessarily difficult all of a sudden? There's a few things I think could make up the issue, and you've probably heard these before, so I'll try not to over-explain these, I promise. Number 1, for me, would be the current state of healing perks. Healing is the most powerful thing a survivor can do, and because of the absolutely busted state of the healing meta, there's absolutely zero agency to being injured anymore. The game's flow is balanced around survivors being injured and taking time to heal or risk being injured, leaving yourself vulnerable while repairing generators. The issue is that now survivors can heal so quickly they no longer have to choose. They can just full reset even through anti-heal like leverage in mere seconds. It heavily alters the flow of the gameplay in a negative way, which in turn makes killers use even more of the strategies survivors on average find unfun or unfair, like tunneling or slugging for example. It gets even crazier when you take into consideration the fact that while healing perks were getting buffed to the moon, anti-heal tools that killers had, whether that be an add-on or a perk, were getting gutted across the board almost simultaneously at the same time. Excessive healing metas have always been unhealthy. Being injured should not be meaningless. You know, it just seems weird to me that a full team of survivors can full reset themselves faster than a normal M1 killer can catch up to a single survivor after they use an exhaustion perk. There's also a lot of discussion around the current Go Next prevention measures in Dead by Daylight. Survivors no longer have the ability to drop on hook regardless of the hook state they're on, and before I go further, this is a good thing, objectively. However, I do believe this has and will continue to have a lasting effect on the perceived balance we once knew. Behavior themselves has said that the kill rate stats in the past didn't account for people going next, and because it was happening so often that even as a Trapper main, I'd have someone go next on first hook in like 90% of my games, it's asinine to dismiss this like some people have. Ever since the update, the amount of giving up overall has decreased dramatically in my games, and the fact that these players are now required to stay in the game will inherently lead to better gen efficiency overall. To be honest, anyone claiming this won't make a difference is logically and objectively wrong. It's crazy that the perceived balance we knew is partly based on one side quitting every other game. Of course, Behavior insists that their long-term data shows no significant change in kill rates, but honestly, all due respect to Behavior, this is a recent issue. This is not a long-term problem. So long-term data is irrelevant, and actually, using long-term data will just distort the averages, possibly even masking the issue. The recent short-term data is what matters in this case. And now we move on to something completely out of left field that a lot of people seem to think could be part of the issue, although I'm not really convinced of it yet, the new survivor spawn logic. With the release of the Five Nights at Freddy's chapter, Behavior changed the spawn logic for both survivors and killers. Survivors now spawn closer together, and killers are no longer supposed to spawn in the middle of the map on small maps. Now, to be clear, I think this is an objectively good change in the long run, but the question remains, is this an issue? For this, I'd say it's more the shock of the new spawn system than anything. We considered all the benefits, but not necessarily the potential drawbacks, or rather, how we'd have to adjust as killers. And I think this is something that over time, as killer players do adjust, it will be a non-issue. It was an overall healthy balance change that simply requires killers to adapt. So, what do I think? Are games more difficult? Well, yeah, I guess, maybe. I do feel the healing meta being an issue pretty much every game, and I think the state of healing is absolutely broken and needs to be heavily toned down. And as survivors realize more and more how powerful healing really is, it will just get more and more unbearable for killers. I also believe that the Go Next prevention system did have an unexpected but also logical side effect of higher generator efficiency. People not being able to give up, while it's a good thing, it does throw off the balance as we knew it. I feel the effects of both of these things, especially as a Trapper main. Now, do I think it's as bad as some people are saying? From my experience, no. But not only can I not speak to anyone else's experience, my experience doesn't suddenly make their experience less valid. So I'm not going to sit here and say, well, actually, in my experience, nuh-uh, like some people have. Now, don't get it twisted. I haven't all of a sudden started losing more games. I still win, I'd say, 90% of my matches, regardless of the killer I play. The issue is, there's a difference between winning and having fun. And if it always feels grating to play, you're not really having fun, win or lose. And the thing is, you see a lot of content creators who basically only play DBD and spend 80% of their day playing DBD saying it's fine, but I don't think that's representative of the majority, nor do I think it's healthy for the game to feel like that every time you queue up, especially since it often seems like you're sweating against perks and items rather than your opponents themselves. So what's the end game here? How do we picture this unfolding over time? Well, right now the experience isn't great. And once survivors realize the power they have, which I don't think they've fully figured out yet, it's gonna get a lot worse. You often hear DBD Twitter nerds in their infinite wisdom say things like, well, if Survivor is so much more fun and easier, just play Survivor. And to be honest, that's what's gonna happen if it doesn't improve. Killer players will either mass exodus to Survivor or another game altogether, and before you think I'm just doomsaying, it's happened before several times. The most recent example of it being in 2022 leading up to summer 2022, the killer experience had become so miserable that survivor queues were upwards to 40 minutes. It got so bad that Behavior had to do a complete and total meta shakeup in the 6.1.0 patch, which anyone at the time could look at and see as a desperate plea for killers to come back to the game. And as history repeats itself, it's likely going to happen again if it keeps going in this direction. Just like before, they'll probably have to 6.1 the game all over again, just repeating the vicious cycle. And we talk about survivors being the majority, but the fact is it's an asymmetrical game. Without one side, the other side doesn't even have a game to play. So pleasing the majority doesn't make logical sense. Listen, at the end of the day, while I don't necessarily think it's too bad now, the writing is on the wall, and I think that if Behavior doesn't curb a bit of the what I consider to be lopsided balance they've been doing lately, it's going to get much, much worse, and it will lead to another summer 2022 situation all over again where they'll have to reel a lot of it back all at once just to make killers come back, which is in turn going to make the survivor experience less enjoyable. But that's it. That's my thoughts on the matter. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Have your games been more difficult? Have they not been more difficult? Have you noticed the difference at all? Let's talk about it. On a personal note, I want to thank all of you for the love, support, and kind comments about my dad from the last video. He has seen them personally, and it means a lot to me and my whole family. I appreciate all of you. Look out for my next video on Springtrap, which should drop next week, with plenty more in the pipeline. And as always, if you would like to catch me live, you can find me streaming either 4 or 5 days a week on my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/PallyLive, where I will soon be finally starting a partner push. So believe me when I tell you, every little bit of support counts. Thank you guys once again. You're all awesome. This has been Pally, and I will see you all in the next one.